What is up guys, NintenDavey here, and well, I have a lot of games, and in order for me to have a lot of games, I have to collect those games. But that's not always easy. When it comes to collecting, I'll always find issues with the games I buy. Some of them mildly infuriate me, and some get me really triggered. So today, we're going to be taking a look at some of those things that annoy me just a little bit, or maybe more. Starting things off is the fact that whenever I want to buy a game, most time it's digital only. So I end up purchasing it digitally, and then later on, they make it physical a couple months later.
Now personally, I like to collect my games physically. I like to hold the game that I just bought in my hands and put it on a shelf. So when I think a game will only be digital exclusive, I usually will buy the game. And then later, I find out that a physical version's in the works of coming out. So I'd either have to buy a copy of the game for the second time, or not buy it at all, even though I really want the physical copy on my shelf. This is a problem that many collectors have to deal with. It's a very tedious process. These stickers are always such a pain to get off. It's always a challenge. The process of removing these stickers can prove to be a very tedious task at times. You'll have to be very careful or else you're completely screwed. Peeling off these stickers may leave behind a sticky residue, or sometimes even remnants of the stickers get left behind on the cartridge, which creates a whole new challenge itself. It's probably best to look at some tutorials on how to deal with this issue instead of just going head on into it. You should never really attempt to remove any labels unless you're 100% positive it won't affect the cartridge in any way. If you're not careful, you might just end up having the label entirely torn up. Speaking of torn up labels, don't you love when you get a game and notice that parts of the game's label are completely torn off or missing? Whether it be in the front or back of your game, it's pretty annoying whenever you get a torn label. Some might not have a single label to be seen, while others have small or huge rips taken right out of them. It overall makes the games not very visually appealing to look at. You really need to look out when buying games because you might come across this issue. Speaking of games that don't have labels, what about games without their cases? In my GameCube game collection, I own a copy of Four Swords Adventures. I mean, that's cool and all, but the problem is, GameStop used to put some used games in generic DVD cases if they never got the original case for the game. They didn't even bother trying to print off official artwork, so you just get some generic characters on the case. Oh, I know those guys. That's Link, definitely Link. Couldn't be anyone other than Link. Overall, this is kind of a big nuisance. It looks really bad on my shelf compared to the other GameCube games, and to me, it kind of ruins my GameCube collection as a whole. Now sometimes they do have the proper case for the games, but the labels are completely missing, so they just print out some really bad label on some cheap paper they used, and it just sticks out of your shelf like a sore thumb. Other than GameStop, sometimes you can just buy the cases online and end up with the proper label, but an improper case, and it can be a really annoying thing to deal with. You know what's also annoying to deal with? Games with permanent marker writings on them. There are many times that any collector will receive a game, and it's in really good condition too, until you realize some genius decided to write on the cartridge in permanent marker. I mean, obviously, I could see why someone would want to put their name on it, but why directly on the label? It's impossible to remove, and you're better off buying a new copy of the game instead. Because even attempting to remove the marker from the label will just damage the label even more than the marker did. You know what's even more annoying than markers on labels? Player's choice is probably one of the more annoying ones when it comes to games on the shelf. The spine can really stand out if you're ordering games in alphabetical order, where the spine would transition between different colors. I mean, what looks better, this or this? I mean, the answer is clear. It overall looks way nicer and doesn't stick out as much as it did before. And it's not just the GameCube. Other consoles have their own versions of Player's Choice that can be just as annoying, like the PS2 and Xbox 360.
These are just some of the issues I have with game collecting. I'm sure you have some too. Be sure to let me know which gaming pet peeves you have down in the comments below, and until next time, I'm out.